You've just watched my 9 housing laws every New York City renter needs to know, and you're thinking to yourself, my landlord's definitely broken a couple of those, so what can you do? Your next course of action is going to depend on a few things: which laws were broken and what your relationship's like with your landlord. You should also take into consideration whether you are a market rate tenant or a rent stabilized tenant, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. So for example, let's say your landlord does not return your security deposit within the required 14 days. There are 2 things you can do. You can file a complaint with the Attorney General, or you can take your landlord to small claims court. Let's say your landlord has charged more than the allowable $50 as a late fee on rent. My advice would be to reach out to the landlord, alert them that they may have made a mistake on the charge, and then ask for some sort of credit on your next invoice or some sort of refund. Let's say your building doesn't have functioning heat or hot water and your landlord is not being responsive to you. This is a situation where you can absolutely call 311 and file a complaint with the city. The city will send an inspector to the property and potentially issue a violation against the landlord. But let's talk about the nuances between being a market rate tenant and a stabilized tenant. When you have a market rate apartment, your landlord is not obligated to renew your lease. As long as they give you the legal notice, they can ask you to leave for any reason. So you just want to tread very carefully if you're a market rate tenant, because you could risk the landlord not renewing your lease if you do get into this big confrontation. Honestly, it sucks, and landlords are not supposed to retaliate against tenants for filing complaints, but it's just one of the sad realities of renting in New York City. This is one of the main reasons that we started Open Igloo, so that renters could read reviews about buildings and landlords before they sign a lease. You're so much better off taking the time to find a landlord that respects the city laws, as opposed to moving in, laws being broken, and then trying to figure out what you're going to do about it, take them to court, take time off work. It's an absolute nightmare. If you have any good, bad, neutral landlord stories, be sure to share an anonymous review on Open Igloo and give us a follow for more tips and info on renting in New York City.